Imagine this, the first former U.S. president convicted of a crime, yet running for the White House. How will a guilty verdict impact his life, his presidential campaign, and the country? We're breaking it all down right now.
Where I've had to pay thousands of dollars in penalties and fines and was threatened with jail.
Today, we have a hot topic that has everyone on the edge of their seats. What happens if Donald Trump gets convicted in his hush money trial? 34 charges, 12 jurors, one exasperated judge, and a parade of witnesses have brought us to this historic moment. Stick around as we dive into the possible outcomes and what it means for Trump and the nation.
Newspapers across the country proclaimed a New York jury's finding of guilt against the former president.
The verdict. Let's start with the basics. After nearly 5 weeks of testimony, both the prosecution and the defense have rested their cases. Closing arguments began on Tuesday, and the jury will soon start deliberations. So what happens next? If Trump is found guilty on even one of the 34 felony charges, he would become the first former U.S. president with a criminal conviction. But don't expect dramatic scenes of him being hauled off in handcuffs. Trump has been free on bail throughout the trial and will likely remain so until sentencing.
List of false claims, grudges, and grievances, including against the Democratic prosecutor who won the case against him.
Sentencing. Next, let's talk about sentencing. Judge Juan Merchan has several factors to consider, such as Trump's age, 77, his lack of previous convictions, and the nature of the crime. Sentences could range from fines and probation to prison time. However, many legal experts believe that prison is unlikely given the nonviolent nature of the charges and the logistical challenges of incarcerating a former president with Secret Service protection. Appeals. A guilty verdict is just the beginning. Trump's legal team would almost certainly appeal, a process that could drag on for months or even years. The appeal would start at the appellate division in Manhattan and could potentially go all the way to the Court of Appeals in Albany. During this time, Trump would remain free on bail. Campaign implications. Here's where it gets really interesting. Despite a potential conviction, Trump can still run for president. The U.S. Constitution sets few requirements for presidential candidates. Being a natural-born citizen, at least 35 years old, and having lived in the U.S. for 14 years. Criminal records aren't a disqualifier. Public opinion and electoral impact. A conviction could sway voters. Polls show that a significant percentage of voters in key swing states would refuse to vote for Trump if convicted. Even a small shift could be consequential in a tight race. This factor makes the verdict crucial, not just for Trump, but for the entire political landscape heading into the 2024 election. Pardon possibilities. Can Trump pardon himself if he becomes president again? Not in this case. The hush money case is a state matter, which means only the New York governor could issue a pardon. The same applies to his case in Georgia. However, Trump faces federal charges as well, and there's an ongoing debate among constitutional scholars about whether a president can self-pardon. Long-term consequences. Beyond the immediate legal implications, a conviction could impact Trump's other criminal cases and his public perception. A guilty verdict might embolden prosecutors in other jurisdictions and influence jury perceptions in future trials. Additionally, it could undermine Trump's credibility, affecting his legal defense strategies and overall public image. To sum it up, a guilty verdict in Trump's hush money trial could set off a complex chain of events. While he might avoid prison due to various mitigating factors, the long-term impacts on his political career and other legal battles could be profound. This trial is not just about the charges at hand, but about the broader implications for American politics and justice. Let's extend this explanation further with some additional context. Trump is facing multiple legal challenges beyond the hush money trial. In Florida, he faces 40 felony counts for allegedly hoarding classified documents and obstructing the government's efforts to retrieve them. In Washington, He has 4 counts related to his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. And in Georgia, he faces 13 felony counts in connection with his attempts to overturn the 2020 election results in that state. While a conviction in the hush money trial wouldn't directly impact these other cases, it could significantly influence his legal strategy and public perception. A guilty verdict might embolden prosecutors in other jurisdictions and influence jury perceptions in future trials. History also tells us that candidates with criminal convictions have run for president in the past, albeit unsuccessfully. About 100 years ago, Eugene Debs ran for president while in federal prison as the nominee of the Socialist Party and got close to 1 million votes without ever hitting the campaign trail. Another convicted presidential candidate, Lyndon LaRouche, ran for president in every election between 1976 and 2004, including 1 campaign from prison, though he only got over 26,000 votes. The judge in this case, Justice Juan Merchan, has final discretion in sentencing. Given factors like Trump's age, he's about to turn 78, and his lack of prior convictions, he might avoid jail time. In fact, most first-time offenders in nonviolent cases are often sentenced to probation and fines. However, it is possible the judge decides to incarcerate Trump if he's convicted. If he does, the sentence is expected to be anywhere from 1 to 4 years, either at New York City's Rikers Island or in one of New York's 44 state prisons. Unlike his other criminal cases, if Trump is convicted in this trial and elected president again, he would not be able to try to pardon himself because falsifying business records is a state crime, and only the New York governor could pardon him. If Trump is convicted, he will almost certainly appeal the verdict. This process could take months to play out. It would likely begin in the appellate division in Manhattan and could eventually reach the Court of Appeals in Albany. Given the complexity and the significance of the case, it's possible that the appeals process wraps up after Election Day. We know that Trump can still run for president with a felony conviction, but can he vote for himself as a convicted felon? Well, it depends. For Trump to lose his voting rights, he would need to actually be in jail at the time of the November election. It is possible that the judge hands him a jail sentence, but if his appeal takes longer than 6 months, he'll be able to vote. The Constitution does not address whether convicted felons have the right to vote, but several states impose limitations on their voting privileges. In Florida, where Trump lives and has voted since 2020, a felon's eligibility to vote depends on the laws of the state where the conviction occurred, which in this case is New York. New York only revokes a felon's voting rights while they are incarcerated. So if Trump is convicted and receives a probationary sentence, he would maintain his eligibility to vote. The only way he wouldn't be able to vote is if he were in jail at the time of the election. In conclusion, a guilty verdict in Trump's hush money trial could have far-reaching consequences for his personal life, his presidential campaign, and the broader political landscape. Whether he faces prison time, navigates an extended appeals process, or continues his campaign amidst controversy, the outcomes of this trial will undoubtedly shape the future of American politics. That's all for today's deep dive into what happens if Donald Trump gets convicted. If you found this video informative, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on this and other important stories. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear from you. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.